I probably should shut the door. DJ Roomba's roaming around.
And start the stream there. Okay. Going live. And we're live here on Facebook. I'd like to welcome those listening in podcast land, as well as like to welcome my buddy Rich. Rich, how you doing today?
I'm doing good, Mike, and we can't forget about the folks watching us over on the YouTube
Yeah.
as well. Welcome to everybody wherever you're watching or
Yep.
listening to the show. Mike, how was your week? You started a new job this week.
Yeah, I started a new job. It is going quite well. Seems like it's going to be a great place to work. Great people. Totally loving it. There's some stuff to learn, but there always is, and we'll get through that and hopefully have just a great time. So on top of that, might already be starting to look at coaching.
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 Okay.
So I did PA announcing
coaching.
first in Estherville. So the PA announcing thing already happened. Now I might go into the coaching segment of.
Okay. Are you ready to share what that sport could be? Or are you going to wait until it becomes official?
It might be esports.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Awesome. Never heard of it'll be a new one for me. I know we've kind of talked about that was like one of our first topics on the show.
Yeah.
Is esports a sport? So yeah, it'll be interesting to see what games that you'll be coaching them in. Would you try and get them into the iRacing leagues?
So that's not a thing that we have here in the state of Iowa. What it would be for, it would be a racing. It's Mario Kart. There's a Mario Kart season that starts mid-March. So
very nice. That's cool. Not once again, not what I was expecting. I was what you mean, like an Overwatch or something.
They have an Overwatch season. They also have a Mario Smash Brothers season. Right now, we actually have a group that goes to state at the end of the week for Rocket League.
Huh.
So.
All right. So at least with the Mario Brothers and the Smash Sports, your wife can't. You can write off all that time of you playing the game at home. No. I'm working with my students. I'm playing online with them. Trying to improve them.
There might be some of that there. We'll see. We'll have to see how it goes, but okay. So let's
very cool, Mike.
We got some big stuff to talk about this week. We had the Super Bowl, but there's more in the NFL to talk about, as well as more football.
Maybe more football. I don't know. So, but yeah.
And Rich, what other topics are we talking about this week?
You know, Mike, we got a little bit of baseball to talk about as pitchers and catchers have reported this week. So MLB brought out some new rule changes to look into, to look forward, maybe not look forward to, but at least are going to go into place with the season starting at the end of March.
Yep.
As well as we're going to tell you how you can play fantasy NASCAR along with us, with Mikey and I, and we're going to start our very first prediction for the regular season of NASCAR, as well as give you a prediction for our overall Cup championship.
Yeah.
Cup Series champion. And but Mike, before we get into the show, what do we got to do first?
We got to roll that intro. Broadcasting live from somewhere in Iowa. This is Balls and Sticks, the podcast, with your hosts, Mike and Rich. And we're back. Okay, Rich, before we get into the show and we start talking sports topics, we got to talk our poll question this week. This last week's poll question was Rock and Roll Part 2, the Hey Song, versus Rock and Roll All Night. Rich, which one did you vote for?
I went with the Hey song. You see it played around pretty much all sports. Try to work that into their soundtrack of the night. So that's what I went with.
I agree. As much as I love Kiss, it is. It's one of those things that you gotta take. You gotta go with the classics. And this week's the classics win as 4 votes for Rock and Roll Part 2. You, me, your father, and Mark Johansson. And then we had 1 vote. Sean Hurley.
All right. So thank you for everyone that voted. This week's poll question will be Mr. Brightside taking on Welcome to the Jungle.
Yeah.
We'll get that. I'll work on getting that live once we go off of the air. So, Mike, we had the big game or the Super Bowl, whatever you like to call it. It was a 38-35 Chiefs victory. So you had the Chiefs, Mike, because I took the Eagles. So I owe you a lunch, and our playoff predictions record, we both finished 8-4.
Yeah.
So, Mike, what were your thoughts on the big game?
Oh man, things have been blown out of proportion.
Okay.
And I don't know if you've seen the pictures. I know that you and your wife, there were some calls that everybody thought was a little crazy. And I think that has more to do with the TV coverage than what we've actually, than some things that have happened and come out more recently. The biggest one being the holding call to extend a drive to put the Chiefs basically in chip shot range for the win. You look like you're a little.
No. I'm just letting you finish your thought. That's all.
So, first of all, immediately after the game, at the press conference, and I can't remember the player's name.
James Bradbury.
Yeah, he said, I held him. I was hoping I would get away with it. I was hoping they didn't see it. I held him. That's my bad. 2, there have been pictures that have come out that clearly show the jersey being tugged and held. And the whole world is like, well, this is crazy, blah, blah, blah. It was a clear hold. He admitted it was a clear hold. We can't do this, folks. We're better than this. So, that being said, it was still. I think it was a good game. I mean,
oh yeah, I mean,
is it annoying?
It was a good game.
Is it annoying to see a team have their running back stop at the 2-yard line when he clearly was being almost pushed into the end zone by the opposing team?
But that's good football.
Yeah.
By all means, did you want to see it end with the team basically kneeling down? Because even if he hadn't gone into even if he like he ran out of bounds instead of sliding, then what would have happened is they would have kneeled down to get the ball spot in the exact spot for their kicker that they wanted,
which is what they did.
And then Andy Reid calls a timeout. Yeah,
it's exactly what they did.
It's a little bit. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't remember all the things. I'm not going to lie. I don't.
No, they totally did that. They sat there and they waited and they got to the 2-yard line and then they knelt down 3 times. And then at 11 seconds left, they call the timeout, and you have the field goal that wins the game for the Kansas City Chiefs, leaving only like 8 seconds on the clock for the offense to do anything. It's good situational football. It's smart football play. It's the way. It's how you win the game. I mean, people are like, we want it to change. We want to make them play, make them play. Well, you know what? Clock management is a part of the game.
Mm-hmm.
How much did we harp on clock management early in the year when a certain Dallas Cowboy head coach didn't know how many timeouts he had, or didn't know when to call timeouts, or when to do this or when to do that? We harped on it then when he was doing terrible time management, and then Andy's Reid team does some of the best time clock management we've seen in our lifetime in order to win the game. Come on now.
Yeah, it was smart. It was a smart move.
Yeah.
It was the smart thing to do. Would you have rather seen Jerick McKinnon running for the touchdown so that the Eagles would have had more time to maybe work their way into field goal range? Yeah. But because of that move, you know who would have been under fire if they had run into the end zone and Hurts was able to get him into a field goal range or even score a touchdown? Then Jerick McKinnon's the one getting backlash of why'd you score a touchdown?
Yep. He did exactly what he's supposed to do. The only thing he could have done better is just stood there and waited for somebody to hit him.
Waited more time to come out.
Yeah.
Oops, late hit. You defenseless. He gave himself up.
Yep.
But yeah, it was a great game. Didn't necessarily want to see it end that way, but that's also the way the game. That's how you play football.
That's how you play football.
You wouldn't have batted an eye if a regular season game had ended on it that way.
100%.
One bit.
100%. You would have praised the coach for teaching his team what to do in that situation.
Well, yeah, I mean, you mentioned James Bradbury coming out after the game and publicly saying, "Yep, I held him.
Yep.
Thought I could get away with it." Was from the TV angles? Yeah, it did look like a ticky-tack play that could have gone either way.
Yeah.
But like you're talking about the still photos, then it does show, yeah, that was a blatant hold.
Well, and Fox never got to the point, never showed all the way where the jersey pull was. They never rewound enough to get there. They just didn't. That was the problem. Like, I truly feel if Fox would have rewound it to the point that the people would have seen that poll, I bet you less people would have been upset about it.
Yeah, I mean, the one thing that I really didn't like about the whole situation, you got great move by Bradbury to come out and say, yeah, it was a hold. That's on me. I thought I could get away with it.
Yep.
You're not cheating, you're not trying. No, he didn't come out and say, if we're not cheating, you're not trying. But, hey, he saw a way that he could help, whether it was accidental or on purpose. He thought he'd get away with it with the way the game was being called. But I just didn't like what Juju Smith-Schuster did a couple days later after it, saying he went on Twitter and put on there, "I'll always hold, Happy Valentine's Day, I'll always hold you when it matters most." So,
I mean,
now if Bradbury come out and said, you know what, it was a close call, it could have gone either way. Yeah, I held him, but we were getting away with worse in the game earlier on in the game. I don't know why they called it at that point.
Yeah.
Then I could see, yeah, you needed to put something out there. But he came out, he admitted, yep, what I did was wrong. I did that. It was wrong. Thought I could get away with it. Was hoping they'd overlook it. Why is Juju Smith-Schuster need to come out and pour salt in the wound or go off and say something stupid like that on a Twitter account?
You know what? I mean, I understand it. You're make a joke out of it. I'm okay with it. It's fine. But
all right.
You know. So, Rich, overall, does this change your viewpoint on Patrick Mahomes for the better? Does it change your viewpoint on Jalen Hurts? And do you believe in the Phillies again?
Yeah, I think the Eagles can get back there again. They've got to make some decisions. It'll be interesting to see how they work in a new contract with Jalen Hurts and manage to bring in people around him. But they've got 2 draft picks in the first round this year. Yeah, they're losing a lot of defensive stars, but the guy they drafted last year, Jordan Davis, didn't get much playing time this year.
Let's
More
let's
of a rotational guy,
let's talk
and
this season though, and this is why I bring up the question. Game
okay.
one, the Eagles beat the Lions. This is before Carr knew how to play football again, and they barely beat them by 3 points. Then they beat Kirk Cousins in prime time. We all know Kirk Cousins can't play after 5 p.m. Then they beat the Washington Commanders. It should be expected, but whatever. Uh, then they beat the Jaguars again before Trevor Lawrence remembered how to play football. They beat the Cardinals. Cardinals aren't that good of a team. The Cowboys, I give them, that's a decent win. The Steelers, not a good win. But then we get down to the Bears. We'll just skip to the Bears. Terrible team. They barely beat them in that game. They barely beat the Colts. Again, a terrible team. I'm just looking at their record and I'm like, was this a real... Like, they lost to the Saints.
Was that a Jalen Hurts game or was that a Gardner Minshew game? Because
Does it matter?
The team played drastically different without Jalen Hurts in the lineup.
Okay, sure, I'll give you that one. I think the Saints didn't have Jalen Hurts. You're right, but either way, that team, man, a lot of their wins are to not great teams. They had a
But
pretty...
that's one of the advantages of the schedule, though. You won the games that you needed to win,
but it won't
whether it was a close game
it won't
or
be
a win.
They should get a tougher schedule next year.
They will get a tougher schedule next year.
And they won't be... I don't know if they'll make the playoffs even.
All right. You kind of asked, I don't remember if we talked about the same way about the Bengals, where the Bengals a one-year fluke, and they proved everybody wrong that, you know what, they came back, they won their division, and
but
maybe if the DeMar Hamlin game didn't happen and they beat the Bills, maybe they have a different path along the playoffs as the number 2 seed instead of the number 3 seed.
But did the Bengals... I don't know.
There's still a chance, but they're going to have a lot of holes. The Eagles are going to have a lot of holes to plug on defense.
Yep.
This upcoming off season, and they're going to have to pay Jalen Hurts either this year or next year, and the quarterback can take up a lot of your cap space.
Yeah,
and then you're going to have to get creative with how you spread that out to fill out the rest of the roster.
By the way, and we'll move into this because it's kind of it's two massive holes in organizationally for them. They lost both of their coordinators.
They did. They really did. As the Colts hired away Shane Steichen, I think that's how you say the name.
Yep.
As the offensive coordinator, you knew he was on his way out before the Super Bowl started, and then a day after the Super Bowl, the Cardinals snapped up their defensive coordinator, Jonathan Gannon.
Yeah.
So I think I've read that they have a good in-house candidate to take over the offense. I think they're promoting their quarterback coach to take that spot, but I haven't heard anything about who could step in as the defensive coordinator.
Yeah, and that's the harder one. By the way, what happened to that defense in the second half?
Well, obviously it wasn't enough to take away the Cardinals' opinion of them by turning around, and they still they felt confident in him to bring him in as their head coach. But I don't think anybody that the Cardinals brought in as their head coach, that's going to be a rough first year, and it could maybe even be 2 years.
Yeah,
depending on how Kyler Murray plays once he recovers from his injury.
I am intrigued to see how that goes. I legitimately thought it was going to be Eric Bieniemy.
Yeah, and Eric Bieniemy is on the move as he's going to go out to the Washington, D.C. area to take on to be the Commanders' offensive coordinator.
Yep.
under Ron Rivera.
Yeah. That's
So was it the right move for him?
for him, yes.
That
Because right now everybody's giving all of the credit to Andy Reid. Andy Reid is an offensive-minded man. Andy Reid 100% is getting all the credit. Eric Bieniemy, people know that he's good, but they don't trust that he's the reason that this team's doing as well as it's doing. And so without him going somewhere to spread his wings by himself, not going to be good. It also brings into question who fills in that offensive coordinator position. There are rumors that it actually has a connection with us.
it does. As Matt Nagy is being connected, is going to be elevated from quarterback coach back to offensive coordinator.
Yeah, yeah. And then he's going to look
Which
great.
I don't think it'll be that matter. He'll look great, and maybe he gets another head coaching job. I mean, for me,
Yeah.
beyond me, it just seemed like if he was gonna stick, you almost thought like maybe if he stayed in Kansas City, it was going to be a situation of all right, he's just staying, he's going to bide his time until Andy Reid decides to retire, and then then Andy Reid gets to have a press conference out his retirement announcing that Eric Bieniemy is going to step up and be the new head coach of the team.
Okay, Rich, you have a note in here.
That's how I thought it was going to be.
All of the head coaching jobs are filled. Do you think everybody did a good job on this?
I think for the most part, I think people got it right. I'm still kind of scratching my head on the Cardinals job, but I think anybody
Yeah.
that took that job was going to be in for a long, probably first 2 years. So I hope that it's not a situation where in a year because the team underachieved with a bad roster because
Yep.
you didn't have your best player for half the year that he gets fired because the team isn't making enough progress. But
Yeah.
so I don't know. I mean, I'm glad there isn't the rumblings that not enough minority coaches got hired, or
It's
that
happening.
isn't as big of a new. It just this year it just doesn't seem as big of a news story this year
I
as in
think it
years
should
past.
be though. There is a discrepancy on the amount. I don't think any of the hires were because of that, and I don't think it ever has been. But I think we need to find way. I think the league needs to find ways to uh, bring up black men and help them. And again, if you're not the right fit, you're not the right fit. But it's nice to see guys like Eric Bieniemy get opportunities to be big names in the league. So we'll see how that goes. Rich, any other NFL news before we head on?
Okay, I guess one other thing was Shane Sarkisian a little bit. Is it odd that the Colts basically hired another Doug Peterson or Andy Reid disciple to take the place of the guy they just fired? They fired Frank Reich, who used to work,
Yeah.
came from San Diego, and Nick
Yep.
Sirianni was his quarterback or wide receivers coach.
Yep.
Turn around, Sirianni gets the Philly job. They fire Frank Reich, and who do they bring in? Another Eagles offensive coordinator to take the job. I mean, what was the point of letting go of Frank Reich in the first place then?
Personality.
Yeah, yeah,
I mean,
that's what I have heard.
so,
He's a very Shane seems to be a very energetic, outspoken guy like Sirianni is.
just because
So maybe it's a personality.
here's my and I understand what you're saying and I get what you're saying, but at some point we need to look at things. Just because you're on somebody's tree
Hmm.
doesn't mean your thinking is the same way. It means it lines up enough that you can work well together. It means that you're trusted enough to take on the job. But And it indicates how you were brought into the system and what you know, but it does not indicate how you are going to run things. And I think that's where the difference is. That's why I think him coming in and doing it, hopefully he's allowed to do it his way, and hopefully that will change things a bit.
All right. All right, Mike. So do you see what's coming up next?
Is it a left turn?
It is a left turn, Mike. And what's after that?
It's another left turn. Why is that, Rich?
Well, Mike, because we're going to go into the NASCAR Corner, which is presented by Triple I Sports Cards Incorporated, Moline, Illinois, down on Fifth Avenue. Also, check them out on the eBay. Triple I Sports Cards Incorporated. So, Mike, we can finally now say, we talked about it last week, that
Yep.
you can join a fantasy NASCAR league, and
Yep.
we gave you the link, probably both through our Facebook pages as well as on the two fan pages, and in the links on the show description. Join Fantasy NASCAR. It's super easy to play, super easy to edit your lineups once you sign up through the app. So, Mike, the links are still going to be there throughout the NASCAR season, whether you're listening to us halfway through the NASCAR season or today before the big race, the Daytona 500. So, Mike, let's tell them how to play Fantasy NASCAR Live.
Yeah. We get signed in. So it's very similar to last year. So that's kind of nice. And
So basically, you have 6 drivers
Yep.
that you need to select from week to week. Technically, you could set your 6 favorite drivers for the Daytona 500, and you can keep that lineup the exact same for the next 10 weeks.
yeah,
Because you can only select the driver 10 times throughout the regular season. Once you reach use number 10, they stay in your lineup. The NASCAR app will take them out of your lineup automatically, and that will be a blank spot on your lineup for the 11th race if you chose to set your lineup and forget about it.
yep. And we
So-
we have 3 new teams to join the league.
We had 3 new teams join.
Yeah, the Jenna Beans.
That is awesome.
The Jenna Beans, the Jordan the Soupas, and Jeffrey the Stroop.
Nice.
So
Welcome everybody. So we'll make sure to give everybody a weekly shout out, as we'll give the Fantasy NASCAR standings for that particular week, as
and
well as maybe
and you can
Yeah,
use
who
the
was
show
the-
as your reminder to get your lineup in.
that's right, as you do need to have your lineup set before the green flag, before they wave the green flag. That's when or typically I think it's either right when the race starts, or it's maybe like 5 minutes before the race begins. That's when the lineups start. Now, we
Yeah.
mentioned that it's 6 drivers. Well, your 6th driver has to be
Is a garage
your
driver.
garage driver. And the way the garage driver works is that at any time throughout the race, you can swap him into your active lineup of the 5 drivers at any time, and the garage locks at the end of the second stage.
Yep.
So if you're watching the race, this is where, for me, the app comes in really handy, because it's really easy to have your phone in your hand, look at the standings as they're getting down to 2 or 3 laps before the second stage ends, to where you can make a decision. All right, do I want to take a chance? Do I want to flip the garage driver in, or do I want to keep him on the bench and hope that one of the guys that might be further back in the pack is going to finish better than the garage driver? Because
Yeah.
you'll be able to see how many points they've earned for stage victories versus what could be at the end of the race as well.
Yep.
For a race like the Daytona 500, your garage decision could be made really early, because there tends to be a lot of wrecks in that race.
Yeah.
Gets a little bit tougher on the non-super speedways.
So, are you ready for the season, Rich?
I am. One more thing with Fantasy NASCAR, though. The bonus points this year, much like last year, is going to be determined by NASCAR putting head-to-head matchups together
Yeah.
to where you're asked to decide which of those two drivers in the head-to-head matchup will finish higher.
Yep.
Those picks do lock at the beginning of the race.
Yep. Okay.
That's how you play.
So, with that being said, Rich, we have to pick. Who do you think is going to win the NASCAR Championship for 2023?
Well, I'm going to have to root along with my wife this year, and I'm going to go with Ross Chastain. He had a really good year last year and just couldn't put it all together at the end there at the championship four at Phoenix last year. But he really, what started as a, well, wow, he's wrecking people out and just shrugging it off. Hey, I'm just racing, turned it into being a really good driver at the end of the year.
And you like them
So,
watermelon smashes.
I do like the watermelon smashes too. That's really cool. So I'm going to go with Ross Chastain.
Okay. I like that pick. I will actually be picking Denny Hamlin.
All right.
Needs a good year. So now, for the first pick of the year, Rich, we have the Daytona 500. Before we make a pick, do you have any advice for those watching about how to set up their fantasy NASCAR for this particular race?
For this particular race, be mindful of your usage. A lot of people love guys like Kyle Larson, Chase Elliott, have a lot of good chances at other bigger name tracks.
Yep.
They don't necessarily perform well. So, I mean,
and it's not that they don't perform well.
Is anything can happen at these super speedways.
Exactly. That's the biggest thing.
Anything.
Yep.
So you only get 10 uses. So if you're going to pick a guy that's a perennial top 10 finisher at all the racetracks, maybe don't use them for Daytona and Talladega.
100%.
Because anything can happen at these races.
100%.
So just be mindful. I mean, I would not go to the extreme of picking the guys that routinely finish the back of the pack every week.
Yeah.
Your guys maybe like your JJ Yaley's, right? JJ Yaley. Oh man.
Yeah,
there's some other ones.
There's a whole bunch of names.
Ryan Balicki. Those guys are filling your lineup with guys that really have no business of winning the race, but could finish higher than they normally would with a shorter field. But I would just exercise caution when it comes to filling out your lineup.
Here's my recommendation. Fantasy NASCAR is not gambling. Picking a JJ Yaley doesn't get you any extra bonus points if he wins than if you picked Denny Hamlin or whoever.
You're going to get their
the number one.
They're going to probably get you the same amount of points.
Right. You need to make sure you do the best you can and pick your drivers. You want to be wise. But I would, personally, I'm looking at that middle pack, that the guys that finish between 15 and 25 on average. Those guys, that group of 10, will likely be higher than they normally are. They're not going to take away your usage for the regular season for your top 10 guys. And they're going to, you may get a winner and you may not. But because of what's known as the big one, and this is a wreck that causes lots of damage and lots of people to get knocked out of the race, it tends to make it so that it's kind of a crapshoot to determine who's going to win. So, with that being said, Rich, who are you picking to win the race?
Well, my race winner pick is going to be Ryan Blaney. Team Penske and the Ford drivers in general seem to have figured out the Daytona 500 and the Daytona track in general. So I'm going to go with Blaney.
Yeah, I like that pick. I like the Fords. The Fords are really fast this year. I like Brad Keselowski.
Yep.
So
yeah, I like the Keselowski pick too. I don't remember I think he made my cut. I think I have him in my active lineup right
Um,
now. But I also like the strategy of looking at those guys that are in maybe like that 15 to 20 range
yep. Yep.
on a normal track that you'd normally pick to finish in that range at a non-super speedway.
So, Rich, are you ready for the next 36 weeks? Actually, it's like 38 weeks of racing. We have a couple weeks
I
off and a
sure
couple
I
things.
sure am. My wife, that's something that my wife and I enjoy watching. I
Yeah.
mean, I'm looking forward to watching those races every Sunday afternoon. Getting in a nap if it happens,
NASCAR nap
but also
tomorrow,
just watching
baby.
the race. That's
Okay.
right.
So,
So Mike, go ahead and give our sponsor one more plug before we move on to
this has
our
been
next topic.
the NASCAR Corner, presented as always by Triple I Sports Cards Incorporated, Moline, Illinois. Check them out for all your sports memorabilia needs. Once again, that is Triple I Sports Cards Incorporated, Fifth Avenue, Moline, or on their eBay store. Rich, as we keep making left turns, we don't have to do a lot of running because only pitchers and catchers reported this week. But that means it's the official start of spring in my book anyway. Because
Oh yeah, mine too. Winter is over.
Winter,
I don't care how
yeah,
much more snowfall
yep.
happens. Winter's over.
Baseball has started. We will have games by the end of the week. Are you ready for it, Rich?
Yes, I am. I'm looking forward to being able to listen to Pat and Ron um, on the MLB app pretty soon, or maybe even get to watch some games
Yeah.
this year as well once they start.
Yep.
But MLB announced some rule changes that happened.
Okay.
I think we've talked about some of those things
Yep.
as they've come out. Um, but there's going to be the end of the shift. No
Yeah.
more shifting.
Yeah, this one's already been. The teams have already figured out how to change that, so that's okay.
Yeah.
So
There's going to be a pitch clock.
so let's read it. We're gonna read it real quick. We got some time. We're
Okay.
only at 36 minutes. So the new rule, at the time of the pitch is thrown, all four infielders are required to be on the infield dirt or infield grass, with two on each side of second base. Players will be able to move as soon as the ball leaves the pitcher's hand. Originally, the infielder who began the game on one side of the field would not be allowed to switch to the other side of the field for the entire game, but that's been revised. It's just each inning, unless there's a mid-inning substitution. So, by the way, all this means is that your left fielder is going to move on. Your left fielder is going to get moved to super shallow right field. That's what's going to happen. Essentially, going to be the same thing. So, you'll have a guy. You'll have your shortstop will be right on the bag. It's not going to work. I mean, how they're actually going to enforce this, it's not going to happen. So, okay, but let's move on. Pitch clock.
Yep. Pitchers will have 15 seconds that they will pitch with the bases empty, 20 seconds with their runner on base. Hitters will need to be in the batter's box with 8 seconds on the pitch clock.
Yep. Okay.
So how it's going to be enforced: if a pitcher has not started the motion to deliver a pitch before the expiration of the clock, he will be charged with a ball. If a batter delays entering the game, he will be charged with a strike.
Okay. Whatever. I think that's dumb, but that's okay. Pickoff rules. Pickoffs.
Yes.
Pickoffs are one version of disengagement, which consists of any time the pitcher makes a pickoff attempt, fakes a pickoff, or simply steps off the rubber for any reason. So, as well as when the defense requests time. Pitchers are allowed 2 disengagement per plate appearance without penalty. Disengagement rule resets if a runner or runners advance a base within the same plate appearance. I don't like this.
Don't like it.
I don't. I mean, the idea is that they hopefully will get more stolen bases and blah, blah, blah. I get that. That's what they're going for. I don't like it.
Yeah, I don't know if I like this one either. I mean, you could, if you have a guy that has a good pickoff throw, if you're going to start throw over a third time, you better hope you get it right. You better hope you get him. You get the out, or else the runners are gonna advance anyway. But what's gonna happen if you have a stolen base guy, um, like a Javi Baez or a Trey Turner, that gets 2 pickoffs? They're almost gonna be able to get a walking lead on that third one, on that third out.
Yeah. Yeah. This is dumb. I don't like it.
I wouldn't have gone this far as to say no. If you disengage for the third time or throw over there a third time and it's unsuccessful, it's a balk. But in theory, the guy's gonna have such a big lead anyway. It's gonna be hard not to. It's gonna be a disappointment if he doesn't get the stolen base.
By the way,
get a stolen base anyway.
Here's one that doesn't make sense to me. What about the rule as well as when the defense requests a time? What happens if one of the short what happens if the shortstop, his glove breaks? They have to call a time. His shoelace is untied. He has to call a time. Like, these things happen. That's dumb. Beyond that, I can understand if there is no throw. If you take away a pickoff attempt, an actual pickoff attempt, a fake attempt or stepping off the base, sure. Those 2 things, legitimately, I'm okay with. If you're just talking when they step off the base or when they fake like they're going to attempt but don't actually throw. Those 2, sure, we can limit that. But if you're actually throwing over, why?
So I mean, what's going to happen if a player calls time at the last minute after the ball's already been thrown? Will that count? Will there be any penalty for the hitter doing a disengagement? How many times have you seen like a straight pitch right down the middle that would have been strike 3? Nope, the umpire's waving his hand. Nope, time.
Yeah,
pitcher stops out. And
that's one thing I'm confused about too. Yeah.
So why can't a player? And the last one was, well, we've got 2 more to go through, I guess. Bigger bases, size of the bases being increased from 15 to 18. Increased size of bases should reduce injuries around them while increasing the stolen base attempts. I don't really see as big of a deal with the base sizes.
It's not that much bigger. It's 3. I mean, it is bigger, but it's significantly bigger, but it's not that much bigger.
Yep.
I didn't see this. This is the first time I've seen this one. How about teams will be more limited in when they can pitch a position player? The previous rule allowed them to use 1 when up or down by 6 or more runs. I didn't realize that's how that they had changed that rule.
I didn't know there was such a rule to limit pitchers pitching. But the sides are discussing a tweak in which the leading team would have to be up by as many as 10 or more runs, while trailing team would have to be down by 8 or more in order to pitch a position player.
I didn't know that was even a rule. I think that's dumb, but I also understand that is it any fun to watch Javi Baez take the pitcher's mound and throw and lob 50-mile-an-hour sinkers, I guess would be the best term for them, that go right down the middle but have crazy angles and blah, blah, blah.
Oh, okay. So there's more questions. We've got you covered section. Can a catcher pickoff throws be limited? They said no. Catchers can throw down to a base as much as they want. The pitch clock then restarts as soon as the pitcher gets the ball back from the infielder.
Okay.
Can a catcher hold on to the ball longer to give the pitcher more time? No. Any attempt, at least repeated attempt, will result in a warning or a violation being called. So
It's,
that'll be interesting to see if that happens.
pause. Pause. What if he just throws to first at a pickoff attempt? That gives the pitcher an extra time.
It does.
If all he does is, if there's a runner on first, if he just throws over to first every time, that gives the pitcher 10 extra seconds. Okay. Is the distance from home to first base and third base now shorter, or just first to second and second to third? Yes, all base lines are shorter because of the size of the bases. Is now 3 inches square bigger than it was previously. This means that first and third are much closer to home plate. Wow, that one is actually a big deal, because that bang bang play with 15-inch is going to be a little bit less of a bang bang play. But, and here's a question for you. For 150 years, we've been playing this game, right, Rich? Roughly?
Mm-hmm.
Guys have learned how to run the bases with 3-inch smaller bases, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is this going to change how their steps go? Like, I know, well, I don't. But I'm sure Javi Baez knows how many steps it takes for him once he leaves the batter's box to once he touches first base, right? And he knows exactly where he's putting his feet. Now that that's 3 inches closer, roughly, isn't that going to change his steps? I'm not sure I like it.
Very well could. It very well could. None of these change. They are already said none of these changes will be put into place for the World Baseball Classic.
Yeah.
So the guys that are choosing to play in this baseball exhibition tournament, they're not going to get those game time situations. The pitchers aren't going to get experience working with the pitch clock.
Yep.
They're not going to get experience with the bigger bases.
Nope.
They didn't say anything about the shifting rules being allowed. Although I think the shifting rules are kind of, I don't know if that you'll need to have practice.
Yeah.
Getting into that, getting used to not seeing the shift on there, because obviously when they were shifting, the shift is when they were having those shifts, you didn't see any players changing their approach at the plate.
Yep.
Which is why they probably had to put in the rule into effect in the first place.
Okay, next question: Can a batter step out? When a batter steps out, does it reset the pitch clock? Only when he calls timeout. Okay.
Yep. Can a fielder get a running start to beat the shift rules? No. Running starts won't be allowed. But like what you're saying, Mike, this doesn't prevent them giving up left field.
Yep.
By having the left fielder having a shift to where they're going to send the left fielder over to shallow right center field instead.
Yep.
I don't know if it'd be interested to see if any teams try it.
Oh, I guarantee you they will. I guarantee you they will.
All right. So then the last one that kind of steps out to me, and if you want to bring up one of the other ones, you can. Can a pitcher ask for a new ball? Yes, but he must do so with at least 8 seconds remaining on the clock. It's possible that repeated asks, such as 4 or 5 in a row, will result in a warning.
Okay.
So getting a new ball isn't necessarily going to reset the pitch clock. It counts against them. That counts as their 15 or 20 seconds if they ask for a new ball.
Yeah. I think that covers most of that for me. They have changed extra innings again.
Well, I don't think they've changed it. It's just they've chosen to keep the rule in effect where where they will have the guy that they will start with a runner on second base
Yeah, that's dumb.
automatically.
Okay, that's dumb. I'll be the
It is what it is.
I'll be
As
the
long as
get off
that
my
doesn't,
lawn guy.
yeah, I can see it for the regular season,
Yeah.
but for the postseason, I think as long as the postseason remains traditional baseball the way it should be played, I don't have an issue with doing it during the regular season.
Yep. Hey, Rich.
All right.
So baseball and NASCAR are not the only things to come back this week. We have one more sport to talk about.
Yeah, we do. The XFL is back.
Yeah, they made it a second season. They're making it a second season, or a second first season, or
A third first
a
season?
third first season. Yeah, I guess it's a third first season. Are you gonna
Yeah.
watch?
Probably not.
It's
Probably
gonna be,
not.
yeah,
I mean,
NASCAR's on. Why would I watch it?
yeah. Well, there's going to be games Saturday afternoon as well.
Ooh.
So they're putting 2 games on Saturday, 2 games on Sunday. But yeah, they're going to be going up against the Daytona 500, which for us, that's a non-starter. We're watching the NASCAR race.
Yeah, I'm watching
We can
that.
only watch one.
It's the 500, baby.
Yeah, but I mean, the one thing that the XFL has going for it though is that a lot of the games they're making it easy for you to watch the games as they're going to put them on ABC, they're going to put them on ESPN on one of the ESPN networks or FX.
Yep.
Most cable packages have those channels.
Yep.
And if you're a cord cutter, you can watch all the games on ESPN Plus.
Yep.
Assuming that you pay for that
Disney
pay for that
bundle.
subscription.
Yeah. Okay. Also, the All-Star game this weekend. You gonna watch that?
No, probably not. I'm gonna have the NASCAR game on. I'm
Okay.
gonna have the NASCAR race on instead.
Okay. Rich, it is time. Now we've talked about all the sports that are coming back, but we have one more thing that came back, which means you have to do something before we talk about it.
That's right, Mike. We got to give you a spoiler alert. Spoiler alert, spoiler alert, spoiler alert, because we're going to talk Mass Singer.
If you don't want to know what happened this week in The Masked Singer, we will see you next week. Like, comment, subscribe. If you already know what happens, come join us in this conversation. If you want to come back, most of the podcast things will pause where you're at. You can go watch The Masked Singer at your leisure. Come back. If you don't care about The Masked Singer, we're sorry. This is what we're going to talk about for the last couple of minutes, and then we have some shout-outs to give. We love The Masked Singer. We're going to talk about it starting now. Bye for those who had to leave. Okay, Rich, we've given the spoiler alert.
Mm-hmm.
They've redone the entire stadium.
They did. I like the new studio. I like it.
It looks good.
Putting people in kind of like a concert in the round a little bit.
Yeah. Overall, I think
I
I'm
guess you
excited.
like the idea of the gong, of the judges being able to save a contestant so they could perform one more week if they didn't win a battle, or if the judges didn't agree with the audience vote.
I totally like it.
Was the least favorite? Who was
the question becomes?
Who got the least amount of votes?
I love it. I do love it. The problem that I have with it is, why didn't they use it this week?
I thought that they would use it this week, especially what I found out about the Mustang, which was Sarah Evans. I read an article about her performance. She was on the show. Great reason for going on to the show to surprise her kids.
Yeah.
Supposedly, she was not supposed to perform week 1. She was told that she was going to be switched to week 1 to where she didn't get to choose her first performance song because that was already chosen, as somebody had to drop out at the last minute, and they switched her to being on week 1, where she was supposed to make her debut on ABBA week, which is going to be next week.
Whoa!
So she had to learn the Rihanna song and the song that she performed within 2 days.
How did they not use that that bell?
They should have.
She was amazing. She was 100% amazing. She did great. She deserved to stay on. I thought all three of the people that did it this week did a great job. The Mustang was awesome. I thought she should have gone on, actually. But, man. And then we had the gnome. Was good. Fun. I didn't like the costume so much. Made sense once you found out who it was.
Mm-hmm. So who was the gnome, Mike?
The gnome was no other than Dick Van Dyke.
Exactly. I was really surprised to see the panelists tearing up. Their emotions really got to him, that it was really him on their show.
Yeah,
that would come on the show.
He was kind of amazing. I totally loved it. I totally dug it. Good job. So
yeah, I mean, I look forward to see how they use the bell.
Yeah.
I would have thought that it wouldn't have been. I would have thought that it kind of would have been each of the panelists could use the bell once throughout the season.
Yeah.
Kind of like the golden buzzer for America's Got Talent, and not it being the bell can only be used a total of 3 times within the first 3 rounds.
Yeah, I think it's fine, but yeah. I'm excited. Do you have any guesses on the last contestant?
I don't have any guesses for Medusa yet.
Yeah, I didn't either. I just wasn't sure. Great show, though. Good episode. Looking forward to next week's episode. And join us back here for that next week. Okay, Rich. I have a shout out. Yesterday was the GOAT's birthday, the greatest art teacher of all time. And that would be our buddy Nick Rice. Nick has been on the show. Hopefully we'll get him on the show here. Maybe we'll get him on the show either for the draft, or we can get him on for another for the start of the football season next year. We'll see when we can get him on. We'll talk about it. I'll talk to him and see when we can do that. But happy birthday to him. Do you have any shout-outs for your birthday shout-outs?
I do not have any shout-outs for this week.
Okay. Then rich people are watching us on Facebook, but they want to take us on a road trip with them. What should they do?
You know what, Mike? Look us up wherever you find your podcasts. Spotify, Apple, Google, iHeartRadio, just to name a few, but I'm sure you can find us on any of the podcast platforms.
Yep.
And Mike, if they don't like Facebook, where else can they catch us?
Well,
where else can they watch the video?
You can watch the videos on YouTube as soon as I get them uploaded. I did terrible this week. It's been a busy week. I haven't done anything, so I will get last week's up today and this week's up also today, but it'll go live tomorrow. So,
all right. And Mike, where can they find our poll questions and get alerts once we post new content or when we go live for these videos?
Yeah, for those, you're going to need to jump over to facebook.com/fans of Balls and Sticks or Balls and Sticks, the /Balls and Sticks. You go to those two, and you'll be able to find us. That's where we post all of our stuff. You can join in there, and we can have fun there. With that, Rich, what should I do?
You know, Mike, go ahead and, before we roll the outro, though, did we have any comments or reactions to the live video today?
We did not.
We did not. So if you watch us live on Facebook, make sure to leave a reaction, leave a comment, and if it's appropriate and we see it in time, we'll make sure to give you a shout out before we roll this outro.
Broadcasting live from somewhere in Iowa, this is Balls and Sticks, the podcast, with your hosts, Mike and Rich.